All right, well, good morning and thank you for coming. So I appreciate this opportunity to talk to you about the poll results and about funding for public education in advance to next week's provincial budget. Yesterday, we released a public opinion poll conducted by Environics research that shows confidence in Alberta's government in its handling of K-12 education has fallen considerably. 6 in 10 Albertans disapprove of how the government is handling education. This is up 20 points since last February. If I was the Minister of Education, or the Premier for that fact, I would be concerned about these results. This should be a wake-up call for the government. The poll results go on to show about how Albertans are concerned about funding for public education. Albertans believe that class sizes are too large. They're concerned about the level of support for students with special needs and for students who speak English with a second language concerns. Albertans think education is underfunded, and they would support more funding to be directed to reduce class size and to better support those students with specialized needs. This government was elected on the promise to maintain education funding. Albertans did not vote for cuts to education, and I don't believe that Albertans are doubtful that funding has been maintained because they're not seeing it in the classrooms. Last week, the association released definitive proof that school boards this year were receiving less money than they were the year before. And school boards are struggling to maintain services. Schools are struggling to give students the supports they need, and teachers are struggling to fill in the gaps. While Albertans are clearly concerned about class size, this government actually eliminated the funding used to devote to class size initiative to reducing those class sizes. They eliminated tracking the data on class size as well. Teachers know full well that class sizes will grow as a result of underfunding, and we think the government eliminated class size tracking so that the evidence would disappear and that they would not be held accountable for these decisions. Next Thursday, the government will be introducing a new budget framework for K-12 education. It is expected, based on government messaging, that once again there will be no new dollars for education. Yet schools next year will be expecting more than 15,000 new students. When the budget model comes out, we'll be looking for 3 big things. The first thing is addressing the growing costs for boards. How will the new budget framework deal with rising student populations? How will the budget address rising inflationary costs, such as heating and transportation costs? The second thing is addressing class sizes and other classroom dynamics. When the government eliminated the class size initiative funding, they said the funds would be repurposed or reinvested. They were not. The minister said that she wants to look at a new solution to address class size. Will this be included in the budget, or will class sizes get larger? Will the minister provide us with more information about her plans for working groups to examine complexities in the classrooms, including class size, and how can teachers best meet the needs of their students? School boards are currently underfunded for inclusive supports for students with special needs in ESL programs. Will they have to pull the money from the instructional funding to fill those gaps? And how will this be addressed? The ATA is interested in working with the government on addressing issues of classroom dynamics, but there needs to be an open and honest dialogue to address teachers' concerns. And finally, I'll be taking a close look at how private schools are being funded in the new model. While public schools received $136 million less this school year, it appears that private schools saw an increase of nearly $5 million to their funding. The UCP has a policy to create a voucher system that would see private schools receive a big increase in funding coming at the expense of public schools. This would increase educational inequality in our province. And we already have the most support for privatized education than any other province in the country. Now is not the time to expand it. Now is the time to prioritize the 93% of our students in this province who go to public schools. I'll be watching this budget very carefully. And there's still ample opportunity for the government to regain confidence of Albertans in their management of public education. But it starts with them rebuilding relationships with teachers and parents, and by making appropriate investments in public schools. If you want to fix the economy, you don't start by making cuts to public education. We hope next week's budget makes public education a priority, since our polling shows that Albertans are clearly concerned about public education in our province. We hope that the budget addresses pressures of growth, that it takes a meaningful step to reduce class size and provide supports for student learning, and we hope that public education becomes a priority over further privatizing education in our province. Thank you for your time, and I'm now ready to take some questions.
So what are your thoughts on where the province may go with this budget?
Well, we've had messaging from the province that they were going to keep funding flat, but through our FOIP release that we did last week, it's shown that there clearly were cuts to the tune of $136 million. And we also know that we have about 13,000 to 15,000 new students in our system right now. We're seeing pressure points across the province where classes are growing, teachers are having difficulty meeting the complex needs that are within their classrooms.
So class sizes, this is not a new topic. I mean, they've been talking about this for years, trying to get it back down to the magic number. So with this many more students and the class size is increasing, what's the risk? Where is it, like what will happen if it keeps going the way it's going?
Well, I think when I talk to my colleagues across the province, they're already trying to fill in the gaps from the lack of funding and class size initiatives to reduce that class size. So you're asking teachers to, again, do more with less, and that gap is just going to get bigger and bigger. I think what needs to happen is the government, along with the association, and we've offered this as well, to have a serious conversation on how we get class sizes reduced in the province in a way that is workable for students, parents, and teachers.
What happens? So people who don't know, I mean, I've been following this forever.
Yeah.
Too big of a class, what happens? Like, how does it affect the student?
Well, if you think you're in a class of, I've had an English class of 42, and I've had classes that were around 21. I can spend more time with my students working with them. You can build that relationship, help them with the things that they need in classes, because students come with a variety of learning needs that need to be addressed in class. Some have special needs, some are struggling with English as a second language, some are struggling with writing, and having a smaller class allows me as a teacher to build those relationships and be able to give them more one-on-one support to help their success.
136 million, is it 136 million less across the board per school board, or just for the public system in general?
It was across the public system, the $136 million cut that we saw. So when you break it down according to school boards, you can see their enrollment, and then you can see the cuts. So for example, Edmonton had 1,000 new students, but we're cut $10 million.
So what will that mean? I mean, for the average person at home, the average parent at home, 136 million across the board, what will that mean when it comes down to little Johnny or Sally in the school? Like, where will it hurt? Like,
yeah, well, it definitely will hurt. It will hurt. It hurts our public system to cut this money out of it, because then school boards have to make tough decisions about where to put these dollars. And so class sizes could grow. They could cut staffing, teachers, educational assistants, other support staff that are within the schools could also lose their jobs. You could see them transferring money around from infrastructure projects to pay for classrooms, and so I know that we have some pressures for schoolings in our province as well. We're renovating schools, new schools that need to be built. And so school boards are having to make these tough decisions, and it could affect the classroom and how the student interacts with the teacher. There could just be more kids in a space that sometimes is not built for that many kids.
You going into next week with the budget with a lot of fear or with a lot of hope?
Well, it's always a sort of a measured optimism, right? I hear the pressure from my colleagues who are in the field that they're seeing in the classroom, and the things that they're seeing in terms of their classes and the complexities and the dynamics that are within there. But I also hear the government say that they're going to keep funding the same as the year before. And we know that there was a cut of $136 million. We have more students coming in. I'm hoping the government will do the right thing and fund public education appropriately. Our polling results show that Albertans are concerned about funding in public education. They see class size as an issue. They see complexities as an issue. I'm hoping that they would listen to Albertans and publicly, put money back into the public schools so that we can support that, because that's how we create a good Alberta, is to have all of our students funded properly within the province.
If there was no $136 million cut, and still with all these students coming in, what would that mean, even if there was no cut and just stayed status quo?
It's even without the cut that we found through our FOIP last week, keeping the budget flat with new students in is still a cut. It's still a cut. You're still adding 15,000 new students. You have to think after 2 school years that they've had 2 budgets, that's 30,000 kids that we've added to the system with no additional dollars. That in fact is a cut because school boards have to make decisions, and we've already heard stories about teachers who've lost their jobs, educational assistants who've lost their jobs, amalgamating classrooms together so that we can have more students in one room, so they cut a teacher's working time.
Anything else you'd like to add?
No, I think
Is there
that's
any
it.
points that you wanted to emphasize to get across?
Well, I think really the key message is that we've seen cuts to the budget. Our polling of Albertans have shown that they are concerned about public education. They support more funding to go into the public education system to reduce class size, and I think the government really needs to listen to what Albertans are saying. And we will be keeping a close eye as an association on the budget that comes next week, because we want to see class sizes be addressed. We want to make sure that every student is funded that comes into the system, and we want to make sure that we're not spending more money on private schools in our province when our public schools are needing more funding.
What's the danger of having more money go towards public than it is or private than public? Is there a danger there? Is there a concern there?
Well, the concern there is that those are dollars that could be spent in public schools. The association has policy about private schools and the funding that goes there. We'd like to see those dollars that go to private schools go to public schools. No issue with private schools at all. We just think that if you were going to send your child to that private school, then you should be paying for that education and not have the public system pay for that.
Perfect. Did we get everything?
I think we got everything.
Perfect. I'll stop you there, Jason. Awesome. Thank you very much.